Hey Snapchat friends, how's it going? These next Snapchat stories that I'm going to be posting are going to be quite lengthy and they're going to have to do with various articles that I'm going to be reading. So this is for an assignment for my inclusive education class, and my assignment is to read 4 different articles of various topics dealing with inclusive education, and then I have to respond to them by giving their summary and the so what. The so what means, so what? How am I going to apply this as a future educator, or how am I going to apply this as a teacher someday? So I want you to bear with me. You can skip through these Snapchat stories, or if you want to have an interesting listen, then go ahead. So here we go. Alright, so article number 1 is titled Basic Disability Etiquette Tips, and the title is very self-explanatory. So basically this article gives you bulleted points about etiquette when you're dealing with a person who has disabilities. So to begin with, you want to use the people first philosophy, which means instead of saying a disabled person or a blind person or an autistic person, you want to state the person, the individual first, rather than a disability. So a person with disabilities, or a person with autism, or a person who is blind. Because when you do this, you are giving more power and authority to the person, to the individual themselves, rather than to their disability. So, some basic disability. Alright, so here are some basic disability etiquette tips. When you're offering assistance to a person who has a disability, always wait for them to respond to you to help them. And then once they respond, follow their instructions. Don't do what you think is best. Ask them, and then if they respond, then help them. Also, respect all of their assistive devices, such as wheelchairs, canes, crutches, communication methods, and treat them as personal property, because that is essentially the person's, not yours. So don't touch it, don't move it, don't play with it unless you are asked to. Remember that a person with disabilities is just a regular person. They want to have regular conversations. Don't focus on the disability. Like, they're an actual person with actual feelings and thoughts and emotions. They can have a regular conversation with you. So keep that in mind. If you're greeting someone who is blind or has a visual impairment, you always want to make sure to introduce yourself and to also let the person know who is accompanying you. That therefore the person won't feel threatened, or they'll be able to feel safe or more comfortable around you. Also, with service dogs, if you see a service dog, someone walking with a service dog, I know they're cute, but don't stop by and pet it. Like, this dog is not there for pleasure. It's not there for you. It is there for the person with a disability, because if you distract the dog and something happens, then essentially the person who's needing the dog is going to get hurt. And whose fault is it going to be? It's going to be yours. So therefore, it's important to keep in mind that a person with a disability is just a regular person like you and me. They are not less capable, less able to do things just because of their situation, because they have learned to adapt to it. God has given us humans the ability to adapt to our situations. So therefore, when you see a person with a disability, never assume that they need or want something. Like, just because you think they do doesn't mean that that could be what they're needing in the moment. Like, if they need help, if they need anything, they will let you know. So how am I going to use this or apply this as a future educator? Well, for starters, I'm most likely going to have children with disabilities in my classrooms. And this is just going to make me more aware and conscious of how I should treat them, how I should speak to them, my behavior towards them, to make them feel like a regular person, just like any other child in my classroom. I will make sure to ask if they need any help, to be more conscious of their feelings, and also I'll be able to observe the other children in my classroom and make sure that they are also being aware of these etiquettes towards the. So article number 2 is called Teachers Don't Make Me Be That Parent. Before I start, shout out to the roommate. Hi, Armitha. So this article deals with teachers who have had experiences with parents saying they're that parent. When it says that parent, it means that they are annoying or persistent or constantly complaining, sending emails to the school, about their child and about how terrible the teacher is, or why is the teacher not doing this with my child. So basically, the article tells a story about a family that had a special education child. And this child, they took him to school, they gave the teacher the IEPs, they had really good communication with the teacher at first. So to continue the story, the child was taken to a classroom, the teacher was given the IEPs, the teacher told the parents that she was constantly going to be sending weekly emails about the child's progress, about his behavior, about how they can do better, and then throughout the semester they were going to have also teacher-parent conferences. So it was all great. But then time started going by, and then the emails started becoming less frequent, and the parents started emailing the teacher 1, 2, 3 times, and then the teacher was not replying. So then the parents, they were like, okay, I don't want to become that parent. Like, I want the teacher to like me. I don't want to be the annoying parent who's constantly calling, texting, emailing the teacher. So they were letting it go. And time was just going by, and no response from the teacher until the parents finally had to become that parent, and they had to send an email to the principal stating what was happening, and they even went to the school and had to talk to the principal about it. End of story. The teacher did not end up getting rehired for the next school year because there was various complaints from various parents, so that was not a good teacher. So in conclusion, what this article tells me, how I can apply it to my life as a future educator, is to constantly be up to date with parents, keep them involved in their child's life, because in the end, like, some parents are gonna want to try to constantly email you, see how their children are doing, but you gotta think, that is their sole treasure. Like, that's their child, not your child. So you have to think of the parents' feelings and try to do everything you can to make the parents feel involved, to make them feel like you care not only about the child but about them as well. And that way everyone's going to be happy, and you're going to be able to work together and have a successful and great school year. Alright, article number 3 is called What is Differentiated Instruction? So to describe this, I'm going to quote Tomlinson, and it says, differentiation is responsive teaching rather than one-size-fits-all teaching. This means that teachers proactively plan varied approaches to what students need to learn, how they will learn it, and or how they will show what they have learned in order to increase the likelihood that each student will learn as much as he or she can as efficiently as possible. And that's the key word, as efficiently as possible. So this article gives teachers different tips on how to differentiate instruction, whether a child learns visually, whether they use orally, whether they use kinesthetically using their hands, whether they work better in groups or by themselves. This gives you different tips about the curriculum. There's high quality curriculum. It also gives you tips on continual assessments on how you're going to test the students on what they learned. For example, this assignment that I'm doing is an example of differentiated instruction, because our professor gave us the option of you can write your articles, you can annotate them, you can make a video, you can make a Snapchat story like what I'm doing. Like, you're not limited to just one form of assessment to see how you learned. So the so what for this is genius. Like, I really enjoy learning about differentiating instruction, because this is something that as a future teacher I'm definitely going to have to apply. Like, I'm going to have to try to observe my students, see how they all learn, know that some of them are going to learn by hearing better, by listening better, by working with their hands better. So when I do lesson plans, I'm going to have to include differentiated instruction. I'm going to have to make different options of how you can show me what you learned, rather than just a simple and boring book report or typing a response of an article or anything. Like, I'm gonna have to give children multiple options of what they can do, so that therefore they'll be more engaged in school, they'll enjoy it more, and I'll be able to also enjoy seeing different forms of assessments rather than just a typed response. So the last article, which is actually not an article, it's a YouTube video, is called Self-Modeling, and basically it shows a little girl at a desk, like in a classroom setting, and she is showing you how to transition to another classroom. As you can see here, very simple. And she is saying things such as, make sure all your things are together, make sure your books, your pencils, you place them in your book bag, make sure you zip up your book bag, make sure you push your chair under, and then make sure you wait for the bell to ring, and then make sure to wait for the teacher to dismiss you. And she's actually saying the things herself as she is doing the actions as well. So this is really interesting because this self-modeling practice is used by many teachers when they have a child with autism in their classroom. And basically what they do is that they record the student doing the tasks themselves and also speaking to themselves, because this is a way of them reminding themselves of what they have to do. And then after they record the video, the teacher puts it on a flash drive or a disk and gives it to the parent, and then the student can rewatch the video. And it's a way for them to keep up or organize what they need to do, like different tasks in the classroom. And it helps model not only how to transition and how to do different things, but it also helps them model what good behavior looks like in the classroom. And the so what for this is that I can really apply this in my classroom if I ever have a child who has autism, or if I have a child that just seems to not be understanding like what they need to be doing, or is really like somewhere else. Like